to another roadcast. This is the first roadcast for 3 weeks, and the reason for that is that I've been on holiday. Essentially, I've been on a camping holiday with my children and their mother, which entailed us taking a road trip from Edinburgh and down the east coast, past Berwick-on-Tweed, past Bamburgh, past sea houses, and then camping overnight at a spot called Hawick. And from there we travelled further south, pretty much all along the coast, as and when possible, to a place called Longate Farm near Leal Home on the North Yorkshire Moors. So during that time I spent all of it with my children, and I have to say we've had a great time. For me, it's been a welcome break from the electronic diversions of, what can we call it, of the screen world, I suppose. I've been away from the screen, so I've had very little screen time, apart from, just the occasional bit. All I was really using it for, we'll talk about these stupid rectangles, all I was really using it for was to just check routes and find places for us to stay and just pick up information about certain places. Leal Home's a delightful spot. In fact, the North Yorkshire Moors are glorious. I think that's the most appropriate adjective for them. Situated, broadly speaking, between Pickering, Whitby in the north and Scarborough further south. They are massive in their spread, and when you're up there, there's a great sense of peace that comes with it. So we had a wonderful time exploring the vastlands of the North Yorkshire Moors. But of course, when you're there, you are very close to Whitby. We were camping some 8 miles west of Whitby, and Whitby is a place that I've got a real affection for, because we used to go there when I was a child. We would go regularly for our summer holiday to Whitby. It's about 90 miles from Huddersfield. And so when I arrive at North Cliff, I still get a kind of rush, a sense of excitement, and also a sense of deep affection for the place. And it's interesting that some of essentially it's the same as it's always been. It's unspoilt, and it is a picturesque town, on the estuary of the River Esk and the North Sea. And so, playing things like crazy golf, the paddling pools are still there on North Cliff, the amusement arcades, and of course the fish and chip shops are everywhere. It's great, I love it. And all of it was enhanced, of course, by being able to spend time with my children. So if you were wondering where I might have gone, where I might be these last 2 weeks, nearly 3 weeks, that's the reason. I've been taking a break. And I saw a post the other day by a fellow I follow on Twitter saying that he was exhausted after years and years of pumping out the truth, of pumping out information. He's become exhausted by it because he doesn't see much gain from it. He's beginning to doubt the point of it all, I suppose. But, his name's Colin Mackay. If you're on X, give him a follow. I replied to him and I said, you don't need to be downhearted, just take a break from it. Step back and take stock. Because rest assured, your work is valued. And it's not about numbers. It's not about having a massive audience, a great reach, and being famous. None of that's important. It's simply about being someone who conveys the truth. And as we always say here at the Roadcast, the truth does not fear examination. So I'm back, I'm re-energised. Not that I was particularly tired, It's always good to have a break from the electronic devices. But then again, you could quite easily argue, and I'd be inclined to agree with you, that we are electrical beings in an electrical world, and these things don't necessarily need to be avoided. They just need to be used with, I nearly said judiciously, maybe that's the correct word. These devices need to be used with circumspection, with awareness, just like anything really. If we apply our awareness to it, social media is not for instance, social media is not necessarily a bad thing if we are doing it with awareness and we're not pumping out bullshit or anything that's going to demoralise people. We're sticking to the truth, we're sticking to the facts, and we are not seeking to deceive anybody. And in that sense, there's never anything wrong. How could there be with social media? You're using it as a tool, you're using it as a platform or a mechanism for getting the truth out. It's Wednesday the 12th of August today, and it's very, very hot. And I'm in the woods above Ambergate, Shining Cliff Woods. And earlier today, I was reading a few chapters from Philip K. Dick's book, The Man in the High Castle, in which America, it's basically a fantasy story in which America lost the Second World War and has been taken over on the Pacific coast by the Japanese, and on the east coast by the Germans. And you know, I mean, Philip K. Dick is an interesting writer. I mean, I never believe, or should I say, I don't pay much heed to his pontifications about space travel, as I don't believe that there is such a thing as space. I think we are looking at a holographic projection. I mean, if at this point you believe in space travel and you believe that a paper mache tinfoil covered spacecraft went to the moon, then really don't bother listening to me, because you're too far gone. You're too far lost in the adult fantasy for this to be of any value to you. Anyway, I'm not addressing those people. If you're new to the channel, by the way, welcome. I appreciate your subscription. So I was reading this this book about this. It's a reworking of the Second World War, written from the perspective of the Germans and their allies having won. So I suppose it's an interesting piece of fiction in that sense. It's an interesting speculation. But in the chapter I was reading, one of the characters, he's a Japanese fellow. He is referring to the I Ching, which is a book of divination. He claims in this chapter it's 5,000 years old. I'm not entirely sure about that, but interestingly, I did used to use the I Ching along with some gemstones that I had. You know, we're going back 20 years or so, but I haven't really bothered with it since. But it is a book of wisdom, and it is an interesting work of literature, if that kind of thing floats your boat. Let's try and get a good, well, if you're interested in that, I suppose it's a little bit like the tarot. It's an energetic reading of the electrical world that we find ourselves in, perhaps. Anyway, in this chapter, the Japanese character talks about the I Ching, and he says, quote, that the I Ching is alive, as is the Christian Bible. Many books are actually alive, not in a metaphoric fashion. Spirit animates it. Do you see? So it got me thinking about that, because the trap, if you like, in this world is that we falsely fall for the appearance of it, and we falsely believe that it is a material world, when in fact it's not. It's an immaterial world, and we are but spirits passing through it. As difficult as that might be to grasp at times, that is the essential truth of the matter. And in a way, everything is electrical. There's a magnetic electrical resonance, if you like, to it all. And everything is animated by spirit. Spirit animates it all. And if we bear that in mind, we can then see how books, whether they are works of fiction or historical accounts or treatises on psychology, whatever they may be, they are animated by spirit, and that spirit is particularly strong in those books that are truthful, that are expressing the facts of the matter, that are not attempting to deceive anybody or gain advantage over any other being, but are simply expressing the truth. And I suppose when you read a book, you are being drawn in to the spirit and the mind of the writer, of the author. You know, Jason Brashears of Archaix has used the term that a book is a container of knowledge. And so you can lose yourself. You're drawn into the imagination, or you're simply drawn into the wordsmithery of the writer. And you can extrapolate from that everything is animated by spirit. And that includes, you know, the subject that I've discussed upon on many an occasion, namely that of money, what it is, how it's created, and who controls it. When we consider that everything is immaterial, it's non-material, we consider the non-materiality of the world in which we find ourselves, in which it is apparent through our senses, it is apparently material, then we come to understand exactly what that expression means. Spirit animates it all. Simply put, this avatar, this vehicle in which I'm travelling through this realm is animated by my spirit. And connected with that, I was thinking about what people, you know, in many ways I do regard it as the world's most potent religion, this false belief in money, that it has some kind of material, real value, when really it doesn't. Because if you think about it, we live in a world in which there is no true money. There is no true money backed by gold or silver that is used as a means of exchange. All we're simply doing is passing around, if we're using paper money, notes, we're simply passing around promises, empty promises to pay at a point in the future that never arrives. And even if you're talking about an actual paper ledger, where you've got the accounting of deposit and withdrawal, still largely fictional. It still only exists as an idea. It has no material essence. How could it, if we're living in an immaterial world? And now, in 2026, those digits are not written on paper with ink. They are simply electronic digits that are deposited into what's called an account, an online account. I mean, there's nothing new in any of this. All we're doing is moving around digits, figures. You know, even if we're simply, but it's all a matter of accounting. But of course, and you could say, well, that means that money is a spiritual thing and it's animated by us. We create it into existence. But at some point, you need to ask, who is it that controls the so-called money supply? Who is it that creates these credits and these debits that are moved around? And what does it all mean anyway? Are they not just energetic transactions? Is it all not simply a matter of energy? And so when I read this tweet by a fellow who goes by the name of Legal Man on X, I thought, well, that's an interesting subject and one which that I might like to dig into. Not that I haven't covered this before. This is what he wrote. Fiat currency is at the root of the massive rise in the population and the explosion of totally fake jobs to provide to those useless people. None of that could ever exist without fiat. He's talking about fiat currency. Fiat currency is that which is not backed by anything, only this promise to pay that never arrives. I'm not entirely convinced that we are witnessing a massive rise in the population and or an explosion in fake jobs. But then again, he's writing from an American perspective. When I think of fake jobs and people being paid huge salaries for producing nothing, I'm reminded increasingly of those people who work in government, whether it be at local government level or, for example, in the Houses of Parliament. All of them are handsomely rewarded in terms of digital. For what? Well, for being able to impose draconian measures on the people. The same people who never agreed to any of it. And you'll see that all of these politicians, as I've stated before, are indeed handsomely rewarded for their service to Mammon, for their service to their Jewish overlords, their Zionist friends. And so you'll see that people like, I think she's called Yvette Cooper, just a non-entity really, politician, has over the last few years been remunerated with huge amounts of this digital non-existent currency. And it's funny, because ultimately, what is it that they've got? If you've got a bank account, for instance, and it shows that you've got, let's say, £500,000 digital pounds in that account, well, have you really? What have you really got? And is it indicative of the value that you bring to this world? Or is it simply a chimera, a sham, amounting to nothing? You could say, well, even a hill of beans has got more value than digital currencies. Or when I say digital currencies, it's all digital. Let's not kid ourselves. So I do wonder at the deception of it all, at the illusion that is money. Now, if it is, as everything is animated by spirit, we have to say, this is a bit of a shift in my thinking, we have to say that money is also a spiritual aspect of this realm. And if you really want loads of these digital credits, and you truly believe that you are someone who can bring in the digital credits, then it will come to pass that that will be the case. But yet we still can't get round the fact of the issuance, the creation, the issuance, and the significance of having a credit-based economy. That flow, if you like, of energy, which is currency after all. Currency is an electrical flow, has been hijacked by the usual suspects. And it's been this situation for hundreds of years. This is how they take over governments. And I genuinely don't think you can ignore it. I think you have to factor it in. Because when it's hijacked like that, it's being used for spiritual purposes of spiritual manipulation. Well, how do you counterbalance it? Again, when I say counterbalance, is that not a form of ledgering in and of itself? Debits and minuses, pluses and minuses, and the flow that goes between them. The electric flow, the currency that passes between them. And the word money itself is interesting, because if you look at it, we break it down. Mon is one, and I. We've got mon, one eye, monai as the term that you use for it. It's all a little bit mind-boggling, and yet there's a simplicity to it that's almost palpable. Anyway, to continue with what Legal Man has written about is correct in the sense that it's all fictional. In fact, I'm of the view that the whole world is an entire fiction, that it's a blank slate, if you like, upon which you can write your own script and impose your own spirit. So, to continue, he says, he's talking about fiat currency. Fiat is a fiction. The world is built on this fiction. The population and the entire fake economy of this world is built on that same fiction. All the people who think any of this can be unwound or fixed or changed over to hard money or Bitcoin or anything else don't understand the actual situation we're in. If you forced, quote, hard money onto what we have, the entire fake world economy would collapse. It couldn't be replaced because it's fundamentally out of balance with reality. Nobody would exchange true production and work for 99% of the garbage that people do. In order to fix things, basically, everybody has to go. The guys at the very top know this. They're simply betting that they can switch over to robots, etc., before the idiots catch on and blow the whole game up, which would take everyone down at the same time. And from the looks of it, they are right. The people will never catch on until it's too late for them. The people will never catch on until it's too late for them. So think about that. Some highfalutin lawyer, judge, barrister or businessman may sit at his desk and look at his account online and see a large number of credits in there. In some cases, an impossibly large number of digital credits. But is he not vulnerable to the whole thing crashing, to some catastrophic event that will come along and wipe out the infrastructure, the electrical grid? And then, of course, where would he be? They'd have no record of his deposits, his fake digital deposits. There would be no record of that. So at that point, what would they do? Well, is it not beyond the possibility that at that point they'll say, right, all of that wealth, in inverted commas, has gone. All of those digital currencies, those balances have gone. Therefore, we're resetting the entire financial system, and everyone will be on what we're going to call UBI, Universal Basic Income. And so you can see just how fragile it all is and how vulnerable it is to someone pulling the plug on it or to some catastrophic event. A Jewish conjuring trick, an attempt to rule the world, you could say. They haven't got total control over it because I don't think there is such a thing as total spiritual control. Humans, individual humans, have this thing called freedom of will, which is very real and which does exist. And there's fuck all the dark financial Judaic overlords can do about that. Anyway, on that note, let me just finish with an adage. A man does not get what he deserves. A man receives what he is. In summary then, what I'm talking about is this, that everything is electromagnetic. We are in this energetic realm, which is very plastic, which is malleable, which can be formed in accordance with our own perceptions of ourselves. And that if everything is immaterial and everything is truly animated by spirit, then that has to include the money system. It has to include money or credit itself. And maybe this is the subtle change that I'm trying to articulate that has occurred in me in regard to my perception of the financial system. Now, none of this is not to say that there is an inordinate Judaic influence in and over said financial system, because there is, demonstrably so. But it comes back to this point about materialism. If you wrongly accept the apparent materiality of the world, then you're going to fall for the false notion that the credits in an account, whether those credits be written out as numbers on a paper ledger, or whether they appear as electronic numbers on a screen, doesn't really matter, because it's all, as legal man states, fiat currency. There's nothing backing it up. It only exists as a result of our compliance with it and our agreed faith in it. This is the religious aspect to it, of course. The vast majority of people have no true idea what money is, from where it comes, how it's created, and who controls it. A bit like the belief in a fictional deity, you might say. And perhaps money is just that. Perhaps money is simply a fictional deity that people have been convinced exists. Anyway, the subtlety is this. The subtlety in the change of my position is this. If we accept that all of this is illusory, that the material world is not necessarily a thing, this goes fundamentally deep, because if you think about it, if you accept that space is real, that the so-called planets have a materiality, then you are capable of being mind controlled to the nth degree. You are capable of being convinced that man has truly gone to the moon, that things like space rocks are a thing, that the wee beach buggy covered in tin foil was actually transported to the surface of the moon and was driven across its sandy wastes. You'll also accept the bullshit of the likes of Elon Musk, when he talks about colonising Mars. That kind of belief system, that which he promotes, is akin to some of the sci-fi as expanded and expounded upon by Philip K. Dick and others. But it all collapses when you realise that all of this is animated by spirit, that it doesn't have any real material existence, only insofar as we give it a material existence. Again, I'm aware that once more I'm trying to describe the ineffable, and that such a task is invariably destined to fail. However, in order to be consistent, I have to accept that money in and of itself it has no materiality, that it has no real intrinsic value, that it's all a sleight of hand, it's all a conjuring trick, and it's all a psyop that is perpetrated by the usual suspects, namely the 4B2s, who have accepted the immateriality of this world, who have accepted from their false god the notion that they are superior to everybody else and that they may hold, have and enjoy the material benefits of this realm. Whether or not that means they are always being recycled into it, I don't know. I don't really care. It's not really relevant to this discussion. The point being that money is only animated by spirit, and therefore it has a spiritual quality which the Jewish financiers cannot control and have never been able to control. There are certain practical implications for this in terms of how we negotiate our way through the realm, and particularly if we look at the state of the world in terms of rents and mortgages and the falsity of actual loans. But if we then go back to the adage, neither a borrower nor a lender be, we can see the wisdom in those words. I understood that from an early age, so quite what I was doing, getting involved with a fucking fraudulent mortgage, is beyond my ken. I mean, I did go into it with my eyes open to a certain extent, but I was blinded by the fact that at that time, in 1994, so 32 years ago, it was cheaper for me in the long term to stop renting and to invest in bricks and mortar. Even, paying a false mortgage was, in the longer term, likely to be cheaper than renting. I don't know how or what the current situation is now, whether that still applies. However, that's the modus. That was the way I was thinking at that time, And given that this is just a spiritual journey, I can be forgiven for making mistakes, as can we all. I can be forgiven for being duped. But that duping ceases to work when we realise the essential nature of these lives which we have, that we are essentially spiritual beings travelling through this realm in these avatars. And that there is nothing in essence or in actuality for us to be afraid of. So that hopefully wraps it up. I'm going to do a part 2 to this, in which I'm going to be speaking about other matters pertaining to the controlled opposition. But for now, if you acknowledge the electrical currency that is passing through us and out, in and out of us, if you acknowledge that we are in an electromagnetic realm and that charges pass from positive to negative and vice versa, then I hope you'll see the opportunity to contribute to the work at Rogue Mail by putting a few elements of that currency into the Rogue Mail coffers via the Buy Me a Coffee button. It's an energetic exchange, and it's just a way of saying thank you for whatever level of appreciation you have for my discourses and my essays. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for that, because it is, after all, just a charge. And it's just currency, and it does have a spiritual value, one which I have clearly not really grasped previously. Anyway, until the next time, I'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.